Something else that we did today that was fairly unique. You don't see this too often in the Persist program, and it was a wattage test, which basically is looking at what is the peak amount of power you can produce on a particular machine. You could do this on a bike, you could do it on the rowing machine, you could even do it on a treadmill, like one of the curved runners. But essentially within 15 seconds, if you go max effort on any one of these machines, you will reach your peak output somewhere around the 10 to 12 second range, maybe before, maybe slightly after, at which point your power is going to start dying off. We can tell what that power and that wattage looks like on this machine. I don't expect you to just intuitively know when you hit that and how to measure it. That's why the computer screens exist on the rowing machine and on the bikes and so forth. So I start rowing as fast and as hard as I can, and there's a little bit of a ramp up phase to get the flywheel going, but then there's a point at which I'm pulling as hard as possible. Anthony's pulling as hard as possible. And the number on the screen, the wattage number, is what we're looking to record. So my peak wattage today was 714 watts. I did 3 attempts. I could have done a 4th, but I knew that my 3rd attempt, each one got higher, and I chose my highest score. And again, that's something that you could come back to periodically, like every 6 weeks, and test. Some people use wattage tests on a weekly basis to see how recovered their nervous system is. Your wattage, your peak performance in a very short time domain like that, is going to be reflective of how recovered and how rested your brain is, your body, how well you're, how well you nourished and recovered with food the day before. And so on a Wednesday, if you know that's your toughest day of the week, come in and do a peak wattage test. If this week it's 700, next week it's 705, the week after that it's 710, and then the 4th week it's at 640, that's a sign that you're under recovered and that you might be reaching the end of your peak performance, growth in a training cycle, and that maybe you need to get some more sleep, you need to eat a little bit more, maybe you need to back off with your training intensity. So that was something we did right before we got into power snatching, and it's kind of fun. It doesn't take too much out of you because they're just 10 to 12 second efforts, and again, you can use it to kind of look at your recovery and how well you are prepared for training on a given day if you want to do it on a regular basis.
A lot of these peak wattages, right, something that you'll see in a Persist program is that ramping up in a wattage based effort, right? So 85%, 90, 95%, right? Me and Marcus aren't coming out on set 1 trying to hit 100% effort. We're trying to ramp that up and get our 3rd set to right around that effort. And that is ultimately to get to the place of pushing our load in the power snatch. So if we're looking at the power snatch being the goal of that particular warm-up piece, we want to be mindful of that through those 3 sets. Marcus decided not to do a 4th. We decided not to do a 4th because felt like we were good to go. We hit some pretty solid peak wattage numbers that wouldn't deteriorate from our power snatch numbers too much. So thinking about getting peak wattage numbers, think about ramping that up 80, 85%, 90, 95%, however you want to do, however many you want to get to. But the point being is that you're feeling snappy, poppy, ready to go for that power snatch.
Functional bodybuilding is the look good, move well training program and lifestyle. We don't consider ourselves Olympic weightlifters per se, but we like to include Olympic weightlifting into some of our training programs. In particular, we use it in Persist Perform Track. Olympic lifting, for those people that are really passionate about it and want to compete in the sport of Olympic weightlifting, I really encourage you to seek out great coaches that really specialize in that. But for those of us who like to incorporate the Olympic lifts alongside powerlifting, gymnastics, cardio, bodybuilding, the things that we do at functional bodybuilding, then we like to approach it, and I know I like to approach Olympic weightlifting less from a let me see what's the maximum weight I can lift on a weekly basis, and more developing skills, technique, and putting the Olympic lifts into formats, training formats and testing formats that really don't allow for the maximum weight lifted, but more reward people that have good efficiency, reward people that have great technique, and reward people that have put in the time to develop that consistency of just general training and approach to the Olympic lift. So with all that said, today's benchmark for the power snatch was not go and find a 1 rep max power snatch. Instead, it was every minute on the minute, you're gonna perform a power snatch complex for 15 minutes. So on the first minute, you do the snatch complex. On the second minute, the same thing. And you move and move and move all the way up through 15 minutes. The first 5 minutes, there were 3 reps in the complex. The next 5 minutes, there were 2 reps in the complex. In the last 5 minutes, it was just a single power snatch on the minute for the last 5 minutes. Now, at the end of 5 minutes, somebody like Anthony or somebody like myself who practices this often and who's in a pattern of doing this type of work, we might theoretically be able to hit something close to our true power snatch maximum. But all of those repetitions leading up to that were added volume, were potentially fatiguing us, and making it such that in the last 5 minutes, we really had to rely on technique. We really had to rely on focus and consistency of movement. And that is really what we're here to challenge our members to think about when they approach Olympic lifting.
So going through the power snatch complex that we worked today, right? First 5 minutes being a 3 position. Second 5 minutes being a low hang into something off the floor. And then the last 5 working just heavy singles off the floor, right? If the end goal of that is to work your heavy singles on the front end, on the first 5-10 sets, that's your opportunity to fine tune moving into that last 5 sets of your priority. So what that might look like is getting into those positions and actually feeling what you want to work on and what is your biggest weakness as far as getting the most out of that power snatch. I know for me personally, pulling off of the floor is much more difficult than it is from the hang. So I self-corrected right from after 3 or 4 sets where I was almost in a touch and go pattern, not really totally remembering the fact that we're going to be pulling straight off the floor for something heavy. So self-corrected, auto-regulated, got back to pulling off of the floor consistently so that when I reached some of those higher efforts that I wanted to hit for the day, I was in the right patterns to do so. And I was able to hit something relatively close to my max, just like Marcus alluded to earlier. So when you're thinking about these patterns, definitely go back. Hey, this is just prepping those positions. Don't rush through those. Feel those positions so that you can get the most out of the point of it, which is that power snatch at the very end.
And for me today, I was able to, at the end of all that, at the end of whatever, close to 70 reps of power snatches or 50 reps of power snatches, I was able to hit 190 pounds for a single, which is probably pretty close to what I could do for a maximum if you just told me to go and spend the time in the gym and find your max power snatch. Probably a little bit less than what I could potentially do, but that's the point. We're not giving you room to actually go for a max in our benchmarks. We're giving you a chance to go for a max in the context of how we built these training sessions, how we train these in the Persist Perform training track.